Hey everyone, it's Ryan. In this video, I'm going to be decorating some Valentine's cookies, and this will be a great video for those of you that are maybe beginners, and even if you're not, because there were a few issues that came up with the icing and all of that. So I did share, or I'm going to share, a few tricks as to how I dealt with those and how to not have those problems happen in the future. So stick around and hope you enjoy this video.
So I have all the different colors laid out here that I'm going to be using. I have some with like a thicker outline consistency that I'll maybe do like a few details with. And then I have the thinner flood consistency for the others. And with my red, I didn't even do like an outline consistency because here's a little tip and trick. If you're going to do red, first off, try to make it the night before so that it can sit and it will get a little darker. But also, you have to use so much red food coloring that you want your icing that you're going to be making red with to be thicker. So what I would do is pull some of this out when it's thicker, make your red, and then add a little bit more water to your icing and let it thin out a little more to make these other colors. So they're not as stiff. But this just takes so much food coloring that it adds a little more liquid to it. So there's no way I was going to get a consistency that I was going to be able to write or do details with that. So yeah, I'm gonna get started. I think I'm going to start with the little letters. I did another video last year, and yes, these are tiny cookies. There's my hand for size. So I did a video last year with some Valentine's cookies as well. I can link that in the description below. Um, and I did some of these, and honestly, there's nothing like new or innovative with any of these cookies that I'm going to be doing in this video. It is just some simple Valentine's decorations, and it's just something I wanted to do. So yeah, it's just something easy that whoever, whether you're starting out or you just want to make some cute cookies for something, you can do. So make sure if you are using a tipless bag, make sure that you press down on your bag all the way out. Make sure your crease is on top and then cut. And always, especially if you're first starting out, make sure to cut the hole smaller than you might think you need at first because you can always make it bigger. So, like I said, and I'm sorry, you are going to hear the piping bag rustle up here next to the microphone. But like I said, we used to do these at work and we just called them letters of love. And I am working off to the side here, so if I seem a little off with my piping, that is why. It's just to give you a better angle. So with this one, I am going to do an outline just because it's easier for this design. So I'm going to just do like an envelope shape. And it's okay that I'm going back over this right now because this part is going to be a little bigger, and I'm actually going to pipe just a little bit of this thicker icing there in the center because we do want that to be taller. And this one, with these cookies, the tops of your cookies do not have to be perfect. And make sure you keep a wet rag off to the side so you can wipe the tip of your bag off when you need to. The top of the cookie, like I was saying, does not have to be perfect because you're covering it up with icing. Now, if you had a giant chunk out of the side, sure, you might not want to use that. But like this little spot right here will be just fine. Okay, we're just doing the same thing. Like I said, my piping might seem a little off, especially this is the first one I'm doing, so because I am off to the side here. So I am going to take my little scribe tool, and I do like to move them around when they're not completely decorated yet. With this, just so that I'm not messing up any of the icing. So I am going to take this and just sort of smooth out those corners or any other place where I may have doubled the line, just to make sure that we don't have any gloops or globs. Like right here. Okay, so first part is done. Now I'm going to take my white, that is the flood consistency, and since these are tiny cookies, I am not cutting off a very big part of the bag at all. And we are going to flood this part first. And it is okay that we're going in while the outline is still wet, because we're gonna do, I like to sort of not overflow, but overfill the icing so that it's nice and sort of fluffy on top. You don't want to get like a cookie. These are, I'm trying to think of how thick I did these. And I hope it is focusing. The last time I did, I think it was the flour cookies or the Valentine's Day cookies. While I was editing, the focus kept coming and going. It was very frustrating. What was I saying? Oh, you don't want to have a cookie that is like a really thick cookie with just this super thin layer of icing on top. And it also, if you do it fluffier, it just adds a little more dimension to your cookies. So I almost go over that outline. And then once again, I'm going to go in with my little scribe. Make sure to pull, you want crisp edges, so make sure to pull it up to the sides. Also use this if you see any air bubbles coming. I like to sort of use a circular motion to pull it up over the edges. Okay, I can see a little tiny air bubbles right here. So you really just kind of keep poking them until you can see the air bubble pop. Okay. I do have a tiny little offset spatula here off to the side that I'm going to use again to move these so that I am not risking touching the icing. So did those. Now I'm going to do a couple more that I will write on top of. So what I want to do with those is get the base icing done so that it can start to set up while I'm doing my other cookies. So with this one, you want to make sure, I've done another video where I go over the consistencies, how to get the right consistency of icing. Sometimes your icing can be just a little bit thinner than what you maybe wanted, and I do feel like maybe a couple of these bags are that way. So you just want to be careful when you are not using an outline consistency to do your outline, and you're just using the flood to do your outline and then go right back in and flood your cookie. You want to make sure just that you are aware of the consistency of your cookie or your icing. So I'm going to go back in. This white I don't feel like is too thin, so I am going to go in maybe heavier than you would if you are doing, if your icing was a little bit thinner. But I am going around the outside first because even though we went right in with this flood, sometimes your first outline, because it is such a thin line, it'll start to harden up already, and you'll get like a weird sort of texture break in between those icings. Okay, so we are just filling. I would zoom in a little bit, but I feel like you sort of miss out on how I'm holding the bag and just sort of the motions if I did that. So I'm just going to leave it right here for now. These cookies would all be really cute as like a little set of 6 or something if you were giving them to like your kids' teachers or a neighbor or even your kids for like Valentine's Day. So anywhere you feel like you need to go in and fill a little more. Like I said, this is that weird texture that I was talking about because it was already starting to set up and I went back in with fresh icing. So what I'm going to do is go in with my little scribe, and I really want to make sure that these points on this design are pointed and not super rounded. So I am just barely touching it and pulling that icing out just a little bit. You want to make sure it does touch your cookie, but it's not like a little piece that's going to be fragile and break off, especially if you are bagging them. And I just got a new bag sealer that I'm really excited to try out. And if it works, well, I will include the link. Okay. So again, this part is done. If you see any air bubbles, pop them. So I'm going to very carefully. I have a sheet pan over here off to the side so that they can set up. So now we have another one that's just a sort of a plaque design. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to outline. And while you don't want to drag your outline on your cookie, you want to make sure that it's touching your cookie. Oh, you know what? I am using an outline bag right now. That's okay. You'll see. I was wondering why it was so hard to make this outline with a thinner icing, because it is not a thinner icing. Okay, so we will use this cookie as an example of no matter how messy your outline might be, you can usually save it. So we are just going to go in, and again, I'm going to overlap that outline so that it will clean it up. Okay. And we can always go back in with the scribe or even a wet toothbrush. Oh my goodness. Paintbrush can help. You don't want it like dripping with water, but you want it damp. It will help smooth the icing if you need it to. Like right here, I could take a oh my goodness, a wet paintbrush and do that. Clearly, I have brushing teeth on my brain for some reason. So I'm actually going to cut this tip a little bigger because my bag is starting to look like it wants to pop. And I certainly don't want that. So I'm going to go right back around the outside to make sure that it's not getting too set up. There we go. Okay. So now this little spot over here, I'm going to try to pull that icing out and then just fix it. Same right here. I wish I had a pointy paintbrush right here because I would show you. Okay. Now, you saw how messy that outline was when I first started. And like I said, you can usually save it. Got an air bubble. Okay. I just realized I meant to turn off my overhead light so that it would not cast a shadow at my head while I was doing this. Okay. You want to make sure, especially when you're popping the bubbles, that you make sure that the point goes down. All right, so I'm going to let these set up for a little bit and then we will get started on the little hearts while those set up. All right, so now I have these little heart cookies, and these are ones that I really wanted the cookie cutters for last year. I just really like the very exaggerated top part. So, like I said, this is nothing groundbreaking. These are literally just heart cookies, but everyone really seemed to enjoy my last video of Valentine's Day cookies, so I thought I would do another one this year. And this red is one of the gel colors that I shared in my Amazon cart. So right here, I have some that is trying to run over the side. So I'm just taking that scribe and just pulling up and over and wiping that off on a wet paper towel. And I'm just going to keep an eye on that while I do the rest of this. So yeah, I don't know why, but I really just like this exaggerated top part of these cookies. And I thought they would be really cute, again, if you were doing like a little set of cookies for someone and you included like 6 of these with like different colors, and you could do different designs if you wanted to. These little ones, I'm just going to do them all plain, just of a color. Okay, so that's it for the red. And oh, back to what I was saying about the color. That red, while it is red, it still takes a lot of food coloring. There is a super red, which is, oh goodness, what is that brand? It's like the most common. Ateco, I think, is the brand of what we use at work. They have a super red, and that's like what we use in our red velvet cake and all of that. So it does, I do feel like it Refocus. There we go. I do feel like the super red maybe colors icing and cake a little quicker with less icing, but or less of the gel. But this is what I have, and that's what I used. And the last time I made red, I got a lot of questions about um, what coloring I used or what gel I used to get that like deep, vibrant red. Here again, we have another side that's trying to run off. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I mean, if I didn't have mistakes or make mistakes or, things that go wrong, would it really be that fun to watch me? Yes, I'm sure it would, but just trying to make myself feel better. So this is a risk. Like I said, sometimes your icing may be a little thinner than you want it. And when you're doing this um, no outline situation, this is a risk that you take. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one off of my marble because I don't want it to stain if it does run off. So you know what? Because we know this one's thinner, I'm going to go ahead and use my stiffer consistency outline. Icing. So here we go. And this really just helps you create a border or like a dam situation so that it is a little less likely to run over. And I do, this is the smaller size. I can't include this cookie cutter set in the links below. This is the smaller of the sizes. You know what? They are all giving me a fit today. This one's trying to run off like that pink one did. This one's trying to run off. So maybe I made all of my icings too thin today. All right, and like I said, I have a cookie sheet over here off to the side where I'm putting these so they can set up. That other pink one definitely overflowed, so I'm gonna do another one. This color, so the way that I did all of these colors, because someone may ask, is I made my red first, and then I used the same bowl to mix up all of the other colors. So I ended up not actually even using pink. I just used what was the red that was left in the bowl. And with this one, I added a little touch of burgundy. So that's why it's a little bit of like a mauvey pink. Okay. So there, we have that one to
go in place of the one that is sitting over there pooling on my sheet pan. And then here I have this lighter pink, and I'm going to do the same. I'm not even going to risk it. I am just going to do an outline, and then we will fill them. And when you are doing an outline like this, it is much easier to pull than to push icing, because what you end up with when you pull or push the icing is you end up with some flat parts and some parts that just the icing will go all squiggly on you. It's not so fun to deal with when it does that. I have gotten some comments about how they've been positive comments, but how much I explain things and that people really like the detail that I go into with my videos. So if you are not one of those people and you get annoyed with how much I explain things or sort of describe things as if it's the first time someone has done it, it's because that's kind of why I started this, was to teach people how to do these things that maybe, like decorated cookies are not cheap. As someone that sells them, puts the time into making them, I understand why they're not cheap. But sometimes you just really don't want to spend, I mean, upwards of $6, $7, $8 a cookie for a decorated cookie, especially when you have like an event where you're going to have 20, 30 people. That gets to adding up really quickly. So I fully understand when people said, that's just not in my budget, or that's a little more than what I was thinking of spending. I fully understand that. So that's kind of why I am doing this, is to not necessarily take anyone out of business or, take away someone's business, but to help people see that you can really do this, and you don't have to be you don't have to do everything so extravagant. But if you want to do something really nice, you can. So here we have our little envelopes, and this part is set up enough that I'm going to go over top and do like the little flap part that folds over. And like I said, we're going over that outline, and we're going to make this, the reason that I added that extra bit on the inside was so that this part would stand up taller and make it look a little more like 3D. And it's an envelope, it's paper. So paper is usually crisp. So I am going to try to straighten out some of these corners. And here I put a little too much icing. So just going to pull that off. And again, I have a wet paper towel off to the side that I am wiping my scribe on to get this icing off. And you'll notice with me pulling that to the side, it also helped make our little point over here. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit more off here and then just pull this over and bring it down. And then right here, this center or this first layer is not completely hard. So make sure you don't touch it unless you do let yours completely harden and set up before you start this. But I just want to make these little points a little pointier because it's an envelope. Oh, I just realized we're going to be putting something there anyway, so it's fine. Okay, so we're done with these again for a little bit. You're really testing my balance today. So now we have the next size up of these hearts. And I'm going to start over here. And we're going to do, we're not going to start with red, which is what I was about to do. We'll start with this lighter pink. So I'm again going to do an outline just because I don't necessarily trust this icing consistency today. So we're just going to start with this lighter pink and we're going to do some wet on wet techniques. Just adds a little extra to your cookies whenever you do this. Something I used to do when I first started doing cookies, and I thought it was so cool. So innovative. Not really, but it does make your cookies look a little extra pretty. Okay, so while that icing is still wet, I'm first going to fix this little bottom part because it went a little wonky on me. Okay, so now we are going to take some red and we are going to drop little dots all around the outside of the cookie. And what you're going to use is your scribe to do the rest of this, or a toothpick, or even like a pin, like a needle pin. And do another set in here. I used to just use like a needle to do mine. I had no idea that there was actually a tool. So when you pull through these little dots, it ends up looking sort of like little hearts. It makes a nice little border around the outside of your cookie. And this one we'll just take from each side down, wiping off in between each time so that I don't have too much red going throughout. And there we go. Down here, we have a little bit extra again, because that's where we pulled everything to. So that is okay. We're just going to try to pick it up and pull it and even it out. can see that little bit of a difference in texture because that part was starting to set up, but it is just fine. So I'm gonna move this one out of the way. All right, so we're gonna do something similar. This time we're gonna do let's see, this is a softer consistency. All right, so now we're gonna do like the mauve color. Just do an outline. Okay. Go back in and fill. I'm gonna try to pull away from the bottom on this one just to make sure that it doesn't overflow. And with this one, we're gonna go in with the white flood consistency. And we're just gonna do random dots all over. And then you just take your scribe or whatever you're using, just pull through, make them look like little hearts. Oh, that one didn't really work. There we go. Okay, so we're done with that one now. And you could add multiple colors in there if you wanted to. I am just, again, trying to keep it simple. Okay, so for this one, I was literally just making a cookie for a snack later with some, like an extra part of the dough that I had, and came up with an idea. So I have just my white outline icing here. I'm not super okay, that I am concerned with. It's funny how things just magically come up sometimes when I'm in the middle of talking. I'm not super concerned with how my outline looks because we're gonna come back and do something later. But I do know I want it to be a good like outline that's going to hold in the fill icing because it's gonna be red. That one is quite thin. So just making sure that all the walls are where they need to be. So I am going to take the red and just fill this cookie. With this one, I am not going over the outline because I do not want it to run out, and we're going to use the outline later when we finish this. I think we'll do, so like I was saying, that other cookie was the smallest in the set. This is the medium, and then there is one that is actually bigger. And do one of these on the bigger ones too, because I don't think this size, certainly not the smaller one, will be good for writing. It could be good for like smaller details, like we did the wet on wet and all that, but I just don't think the writing would look, I don't think there's enough space on these. So I'm just going back through. For whatever reason, that red has a lot of air bubbles right now. I'm just going through, popping any of those that I can see. Sometimes, especially, I mean, if this happens, I think your icing is too thin. Sometimes the bubbles will just pop themselves. And yes, baby girl is in the other room playing right now. So she may interrupt here and there. Let's see, we did red, light pink, the mauve pink. Let's try something a little different. Let's do an outline in the light pink. I'm going to try to make this one a fairly decent outline. Okay. So now we're going to go in with the light pink, and where the other ones, like when I'm filling a cookie with all the same color, I don't necessarily care how I go about filling. But this one, the design that I want to do, I'm going to care a little bit more how I do the filling. So I'm trying to make it fairly even. So now I'm going to go in with this mauve and do, oh, that's the filling. So that's the outline consistency. So we're going to cover that up. Just going to do as neat of a line as I can. And then we will go in the red. And then quickly, because I don't want this spot right here to fill in, I'm going to go in with the white. Okay. I'm going to see if I can clean some of these little lines up. Doesn't really look like it. So let's try something else. Let's go and make it pointed. And then, you know what? Let's just make it a different pattern. Trial and error. We're just going back and forth, trying to stay fairly even, keep the lines fairly straight. Ooh, unlike that one. Okay, well that was not what I had initially planned, but kind of cute. Yeah? No? I think it's okay. Okay? Now we are on to the big ones. So I think with this one, I'm going to do what I just did with that last, one of those last ones. I'm going to do a white outline. Make sure it's a decent outline and that none of your filling is going to escape. I'm going to go back in with the red.
turned on my overhead lights again. There is a bad shadow. I'm sorry, this left hand is getting in the way. Just helps me keep my right hand steady while I'm typing. Even though I know, you know, especially with the filling, the flooding, that it doesn't really matter how steady my hand is, but just helps. And I know this is probably going to be a long video, but some people also find watching cookie decorating soothing. So if you're one of those people, you are welcome. What color do we want to do this big one? I guess we'll just do a light pink because it's the one we have the most icing for. Now you tell I'm going to have to be very careful when I go to flood up at the top. And actually, I'm going to take that off, and that off. And I'm going to do the same over here because I got a little carried away with going outside the lines. I'm trying to watch myself in the camera as well as I'm trying to look both places, and it's not working out the greatest. So, got a little carried away, and I know that when I go to flood, that it would overflow. So now we're going to go back in with our flood. Okay, so this was my last cookie. I'm going to let these set up for a little bit, probably at least an hour. You can set, like, if you have I have a little fan. I'm going to set it up over top just so that it can create like a crust on the top so I can do my writing and like some of the detail work. So I'm going to do that, probably let them sit for about an hour, and then I will come back and we will finish up. All right, so our little envelopes are dry, and you can see some cracking on this one. I had a little bit of the icing want to run off. So I got a sharp knife, and it would have worked had the knife not slid and bumped into the icing a little bit. So yeah, it is what it is. I tried pushing down on it as much as possible to get it to kind of smooth out, but we are going to be fine with it. Let's see if I can make this focus. So on these, we're just going to do some simple little hearts. I'm going to try to do this from behind the camera. So we're just going right here where the little envelope would be sealed, almost like a little wax seal. And pipe, pressure, stop, pull down. Just piping little hearts. And that is all those are going to get. It really is. Those are just that simple. You could do other little rectangles and actually write love on them, which I have done in the past. But for these, this is all I'm doing. I'm trying to get the camera to focus. There we go. So yeah, that's all I'm going to do. Again, these would be super cute for like little kids, all that, because they are so tiny. Yeah, so we're going to move on and do some other ones. Okay, so for this one and the other one, I'm just going to write love on them, but I'm going to try to write it in more of like a calligraphy style font. Um, and by try, I mean, if it was right in front of me and I wasn't doing it on camera, it would be just fine. But I'm trying to do it at an angle so you can actually watch me do it. So this is where it's going to get a little tricky. And don't judge if it goes uphill or crooked or however it may go. Okay, so now we are going to go in and just make the other lines to make it a little more calligraphy-esque. So what you're doing when you do that is you're going in on the downstrokes of the writing and making those lines thicker. So we're going to go back in, fill these spots that we just did with icing. And this is my outline consistency. And this is where I should have like a wet paintbrush, but I just have my little scribe tool. And we are just going to kind of zhuzh it and make it smooth out. Try to give that a little more flair over there. Okay, so I have a little paintbrush off to the side, and I just got it wet, and I also have a, sorry, I just ran upstairs. Sorry, I'm out of breath. That's sad, I know. Um, so I have a little paintbrush here, and I have a paper towel off to the side as well. So I'm getting the paintbrush just a little bit wet, drying it off a little bit, and going back in to these spots where it's a little bit rough and just trying to smooth it out a little bit. You don't want to have too much water on your paintbrush because it will, as the icing dries, it will actually make the icing, it'll make it crack. It's very weird. It's like a lot of times I do my cookies here right where I am next to the sink and, just like rinsing off a spatula or um, doing something like that, a little splash of water will get on my cookie and it will look terrible because it starts to crack the icing. So for this one, I'm just going to kind of be done with the writing there. It's not my best, I promise you. If it was in front of me, it would look a little better. But we're just going to go in and add some little hearts all over. You can tell with my hearts that I'm sitting off to the side because they're all leaning toward that direction. Okay, now you can go back in with your color that you were just using or to do the love with. Add a few more hearts with that. Just to kind of add some, ooh,
variation. Okay, so that one I think will be done. Put it over there to dry. So now we have this one. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to try to do the same thing. Okay, that one's a little better. So I'm going to go in and add my thicker lines. Okay, and this time I'm going to try to go in with the flood consistency icing and sort of go over these. They do also make cookie cutters in the shape of sort of this letter layout. Um, I had planned on buying some, but honestly, the last thing I need right now is another cookie cutter. And I know that I am going to be buying some more for baby girl's birthday coming up. So, because of course we're going to go all out for that. So, I didn't really want to buy any more right now. So, I am just making do with these. And honestly, this one looks so much better than that other one. Using the flood icing instead of the outline icing for the inside of the letters. So definitely do that next time. This E, as you can see, decided it wanted to have a little more flair than what it already had. So just going to let it do its thing. Hope it doesn't go too far. And then once again, I'm going to just add some, I don't know, should I add some little hearts, or maybe I'll just do, maybe I'll just leave that one plain because I really kind of like that one, especially in that like mauve-y color. So I'm going to call this done. So for this one, I am breaking out my turntable. So what we are going to do on this one, and again, a lot of the stuff that I have on here, or that I'm using on here, is going to be linked. So we're going to do a cute little sort of rope style border around the outside. And I'm going to show you right here on my finger. Weird, maybe, but it's going to show you what we're going to do. So you're just going to sort of go, and it's hard for me to do this with one hand. We're just going to go round. Like that, more so around the outside. I'm going to start just down here. Just taking it up and pulling it down. I think it does kind of look cute. I haven't done a border like this in a long time. Don't ask me why I decided to do one for a video, knowing that. But once you get the hang of it, you'll be just fine. Okay, so that is probably all I'm going to do with that one. This one, I think I'm just going to add little tiny white hearts to. Then I'll go in and add some like little bigger. And maybe some even bigger. So there we go. Now I think we just have one more, the giant red one. So like I said, I know this video is long, but it's informative, I guess. But it's just kind of how long it takes to do this many cookies. Yes, there's like a lot of interruptions as far as I have to stop and um, go into great detail with certain things, but it does take a while to do these. So with this one, I'm going to do the little crackle effect. So I'm taking the opposite end of my little, whatever this thing's called that I've been talking about the whole time, scribe. And I am just going to go over this cookie and crackle that beautiful icing that we worked hard on. Um, I did set these in front of a little fan, and I'm literally talking about the fan is maybe 5 inches wide. So don't go putting this in front of any kind of high power fan because it might mess up your icing. So that helped the top here get a bit more of a crust on it. And I'm not going super crazy with this as far as like how hard I push or anything. Now and then you will catch yourself being a bit much, like right up here, what I did, but it's okay. It's not supposed to be perfect. And on this one, we're just going to do a little white beaded border around the outside. So I'm probably just going to speed through this part. All right. So I will post, not really post, I'll include like a little picture or like a still shot of all the different cookies laid out with all the different designs. And then I will test out my little um, bag sealer. And if it works how I want it to, I will share that on here as well in the video. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed watching me decorate these cookies. I know, like I said, it took a long time, but yeah, thanks for watching. Bye. Well, I guess we could put a border on this one since it's kind of plain. And I guess I'll do sort of a reverse smooth shell on this one where you go back and forth. Does it look very similar to what I just did on the red one? Yes, but it is different.
sometimes a border on these little cookies just kind of gives them that final touch that they need, especially with this one because the design didn't really come through how I wanted it to. And then we trial and errored and still didn't work out how I wanted it to. So we're just going to add this little border and act like it is exactly what it was supposed to be. Okay, so I bought this heat sealer, and this is literally the first time I've used it. So it did take some trial and error. I'll bring this up closer to the camera. So I started out up here, and hopefully you can see there's sort of some gaps in the seal, and I finally figured out the correct, well, what I think is the correct way to do it. And then all of these bags have this little piece of plastic on them. I can figure out which side it comes off on. Oh, I did it the wrong way. But they have these little pieces of plastic. So it is also self-sealing. But the reason that I bought this is so that I have a lot of family that lives 12 hours away. There have been multiple times that I've been asked if I can ship cookies. And I've been like, well, I don't really have a great way of packaging them. And really, I didn't have something that would seal the cookies well enough so they could be done far enough in advance so that they would still be fresh by the time they got there and all of that. So, yeah, I bought this. I caught a really good sale. And so I've been sort of trial and erroring what is the best setting. So I do have this one on about a 3 heat setting. And what that really is how many seconds, I believe, it applies the heat. So you're just going to put this is where the heat comes from. And then this is just a like silicone plastic piece that presses down on it. So you're going to put this part wherever you want the seal to be on your cookie. So I'm going to go up toward the top, and you are going to press really hard until there's a light over here. It goes off, leave it for a second, and take it off. And it sealed the bag. So then I just take this plastic piece off, fold it over, and then just press it to the back. And there you have your sealed cookie. So these will be really fresh whenever you serve them, or whoever, if you do mail them. I have not mailed cookies in a very long time. I'll turn it this way so you can see this light that's on the end, hopefully. Yes. So, like I said, you just put it where you want it, press hard, wait a second when the light goes off, and you're done. So, again, this is not necessary. I have always just used these bags that have the seal on them. So, and they have stayed fresh doing them, a couple days in advance. But like I said, for something like shipping your cookies, first off, you have to get the shipping process down to where you know that your cookies are going to arrive. And if it doesn't seal, that's why I started really high. Move down just a little bit and retry it. You need to get your box and everything, your stuffing,
figured out so that your cookies arrive in one piece as well. Um, so yeah, this is just one piece of the shipping puzzle, but I just wanted to show y'all this because I got it new and I thought it would be a fun little thing. So I will include a link down below to this heat sealer. Um, I'm not entirely sure what other types of bags or things you can seal with it yet. Um, these are just cellophane cookie bags. Um, so yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this extra little bit, and come back for hopefully some more Valentine's themed videos coming soon.